Welcome back to the Band Guide. I'm your band guy, Colin, and this is the first 5-minute GarageBand expert, where I'm going to be walking through 30 mixing and recording tips and tricks specifically for GarageBand in 30 days. Now, this video is going to be all about signal flow. Signal flow is not necessarily the coolest topic to talk about, but it is arguably one of the most important. And that's because signal flow is how your audio is moving around inside GarageBand and how it's being processed at different points. The better you understand this, the better you can affect the audio, the more intentional you can be with your decisions, and the more professional your end result will be. So let's go ahead and dive in, and I'll explain a little bit about how GarageBand is set up. So I've made a GarageBand template here that just has 3 different types of audio, the way that you might have it in a GarageBand session. Now, the big thing to understand about this is that this is audio that's recorded, and this is what's called a waveform. And this is MIDI, and this is a drummer track. So the MIDI is telling different notes to play a virtual instrument, which is then going to create audio. The drummer track is going to tell a virtual instrument that's a drum kit to play different drum notes at a different time. So functionally, those are both going to create audio. Once it becomes audio, it's treated exactly the same as if it was a recorded audio track. So it ultimately doesn't make any difference if you're talking about a MIDI track or a drummer track. Let me show you what that looks like in here. So on an audio track, audio will come in from here, and then it will first hit these plugins. With a MIDI track, it's going to first hit this electric piano. That's going to create the actual audio. So these MIDI notes will hit the electric piano. That will create the audio, and then that will go through the plugins. Drummer, same thing. It will tell the drum hits to hit this drum kit, and then those will go through the plugins. So you have audio created, then it goes through the plugins. The plugins can shape the sound, and they shape the sound in order. So the audio will come down through. So imagine this audio going down through this. It will first hit, in this example, will first hit this EQ, then it will hit the compressor, and then whatever plugins you might want to put on it. So if you want to put a flanger on it, however you want to shape the sound, it will go through in that order. Now, after that, it does not hit these effects. And that's really important to understand. We'll come back to how and when it hits effects in just a minute, but for now, just know that it's not hitting these effects yet. So that audio is then sent out, and it hits this volume fader. This volume fader tells it how loud you want it to hit the master track. So it's not yet leaving the session. It's first hitting this master track. We'll come back to the master track in just a second. And then the pan knob is saying, do we want it to be far left, far right, right up the center, anywhere in between? So audio will go in, hit the plugins, go through the volume fader where you can set the volume you want it to leave this channel, and then the pan where you want it to leave this channel. And then it hits the master track. Now, whether or not you can see the master track, that's going to be the next thing it will hit. So right now, you can show the master track by just going up here and saying show master track. I haven't showed, so it says hide master track. So either way, it's going to be hitting this master track. There's 2 ways to access the master track. You can, on an individual channel, you can just go over here and hit master. Or if you're on the master track, you can see it that way too. Now, once it hits the master track, it's the exact same idea, but now instead of one audio source, it's all the audio sources in your session will come through together and first hit these plugins in order. And then it will hit the volume knob, and then it will hit the pan knob, and then now it is going to be leaving the session. Now is when you're going to be hearing it in your headphones. When you export it, that's what you're going to be hearing, is what's gone through this master track. So I mentioned that I go back to talk about effects. So the effects do happen, but they happen a little bit differently than you might think. So the effects are on what's called a send. And a send is saying that we're going to take the audio and we're going to send it over to an effect channel. And the only thing on that effect channel is going to be that effect. So whether or not it's a delay or a reverb, as far as I can figure out, they've built in 5 effects into GarageBand. So there's the master echo, which is a delay. There's the master reverb, which is a reverb. Then on an audio track, we also have this ambience, and we have this reverb knob over here. So that's 4. And the 5th that I've identified is on the drummer track. There's also this room. That is also a send. Now, an important thing to know about these sends is that they are not affecting this sound of this audio. This audio is going to hit the master track and leave the session as it's processed. It's going to be sending to that effect, and that's going to be mixed in as well. So we're just going to get a little extra signal that's processed a little bit differently from the send. And it's sent after this volume fader, before this pan knob. So even, let's say on this MIDI track, we have it panned all the way to the left, this master reverb here would be going as if it was panned right up the middle. That's really important to understand, but ultimately don't worry too much about that. Let me show this to you in a different way. Here we have our tracks. We have our audio that would hit the plugins. We have our MIDI tracks that would hit a virtual instrument, create audio, and then hit our plugins. That hits our volume fader, that hits our pan knob, then that is sent out to our master track for all of these. If they want to go to a send, then it's pulled right after that volume fader before the pan knob to the room. If you're working in an audio track, it can be hitting the reverb or the ambience. Some MIDI tracks can also hit the reverb and ambience. And then it's going to hit the master echo if you want it to, and hit the master reverb if you want it to, however you want to set it up. And each one of these is going to be individual, and each individual channel from there is going to hit the master track. Then when it hits the master track, you have an EQ, you have a compressor, whatever plugins you want to set on it in order, it'll process through those. You hit your output volume fader, hit your pan knob, and then finally, that's your final mix. That's what you're hearing in your headphones or once you've exported your track. I'll put a link to this image in the description below. That way you can have it if you want to reference it so you know exactly how GarageBand is working. If you have any questions about signal flow or anything inside GarageBand, be sure to leave me a comment. And if you got value from this video, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow with another tip or trick.